Open that bag right now, or I will open it myself. Step back from the conveyor belt and put your hands where I can see them." Captain Vernell Atwood did not move. Officer Dale Pruitt's hand hovered over his cuffs, and behind him, Sergeant Hollis Drummond watched with the kind of patience that comes from a man who has already decided how this ends. What passengers around the carousel did not know was that the silence coming from the 63-year-old woman in front of them was not fear. It was the last mistake these two officers would ever get to make. If you're watching this, drop a comment telling us where in the world you're tuning in from, and make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's story might be the one you needed today. Captain Vernell Atwood stepped off the jet bridge into Crest Haven Regional Terminal at 5:20 in the morning, her knees aching from a red-eye that had been delayed twice out of Memphis. She carried a worn leather satchel in one hand and a sealed federal case in the other, the kind with a combination lock and a chain that wrapped once around her wrist out of habit more than necessity. Tucked inside her coat, against her ribs, sat a folder with her appointment papers, the city seal pressed into the corner like a promise nobody had told the rest of the building about yet. The terminal was nearly empty. A cleaning crew buffed the floor near the food court. A young man in a hoodie slept across 3 chairs with his backpack as a pillow. Vernell liked it this way. No welcoming committee, no photographers, no councilman shaking her hand a little too long for the cameras. Tomorrow they would stand her up at a podium and call her the new commanding officer of the Crest Haven Airport Police Division. Tonight she only wanted her rental car and a bed. She made her way toward baggage claim, her low heels clicking soft and even against polished tile. The case in her hand was heavier than it looked, 18 pounds of documents and 2 hard drives that certain people had already tried, twice, to make vanish before they ever reached her desk. The carousel sat still when she arrived, her flight's bag still 10 minutes out. She set her satchel against the wall and kept the case close. That was when she noticed him. He stood near a pillar, pretending to scroll his phone, a heavy-set white man somewhere in his late 30s, forearms thick as fence posts, name tag reading D.P. His eyes kept drifting to the case in her hand the way a dog eyes a plate left too close to the table's edge. Vernell had seen that look on men before. It was a look that decided who belonged somewhere before a single word was spoken. A second officer crossed the floor to join him, this one with a sharper crease in his uniform and a walk that suggested he practiced it in a mirror. He murmured something to Pruitt, and the two of them came toward her together. Vernell did not move. She breathed slow and even, the way her late husband had taught her 30 years ago when he came home from the mill with a face full of something he never wanted to talk about. "Never give a man a reason, baby," he used to say, "but never bow your head either." "Morning," the sharp-creased one said. His name tag read SGTH, Drummond. "That's a serious-looking case you've got there, ma'am." "Good morning, officers," Vernell said. "What's in it?" Pruitt asked, no greeting attached to the question at all. "Personal items and department property," she answered. "Department," Pruitt repeated, his eyebrows climbing. "Which department exactly would that be?" "We had an alert come through," Drummond said, his voice pitched low and almost gentle, the kind of gentle that makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck. "Unaccompanied traveler, locked case, behavior flagged as suspicious. We just need to take a look inside." "I'd like to see that alert," Vernell said. "That's not how this works," Drummond said. "We ask, you answer." A woman at the next carousel pulled her teenage son away by the sleeve. An older man in a faded army cap rose halfway off a bench, watching. "Are you suggesting I'm carrying something illegal?" Vernell asked, her voice never rising above conversation. "I'm not suggesting anything," Pruitt snapped. "I'm asking a simple question." "Am I being detained?" Vernell asked. Pruitt's jaw tightened like she'd struck a nerve he didn't know he had. "People always ask that now," he muttered. "They see it on the internet and think it makes them lawyers." "I have not consented to a search," Vernell said. "I'd like to speak with a supervisor." "I am the supervisor," Drummond said, his smile stretching wider without ever reaching his eyes. "Sergeant Hollis Drummond, Crest Haven Airport Police. We can do this the easy way, or Officer Pruitt here can make it considerably harder." Pruitt's fingers drummed against his duty belt. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside," and Pruitt reached out and yanked the satchel clean off her shoulder before she finished hearing the sentence form. The strap caught her arm and spun her half around. He dumped it onto the floor without ceremony. A folded cardigan slid out, a paperback, a tin of peppermints, and her late husband's funeral program, the one she carried everywhere, fluttering down to land face up on the dirty tile. "Look at that," Pruitt said, nudging her belongings with the toe of his boot. "All calm and collected, but you're sweating now, aren't you?" "You have no right," Vernell said, bending to gather her things. His hand closed around her wrist before she finished the sentence, twisting it hard behind her back. Pain shot clean up to her shoulder. "Don't touch evidence," he barked. "Get your hands off me," she said through her teeth. "Or what?" he sneered, twisting harder. "You gonna file a complaint?" "He's standing right beside me." The man in the army cap stood all the way up. "Officer, that's enough," he said. "Sir, step back," Drummond said, moving between them. "This is an active investigation." "Investigation of what?" the veteran demanded. "Suspected smuggling," Pruitt announced loudly enough for the whole floor to hear. "This woman is transporting something she does not want us to see." "That's a lie," Vernell said. Pruitt wrenched her arm higher. "Quiet." 10 feet away, a gray-haired woman in a cardigan, the color of a ripe plum, lifted her phone and began to record, holding it as steady as if she had done this before. Nobody noticed her. Just another grandmother waiting on a ride. Drummond knelt and popped the locks on the federal case with a multi-tool, the kind of practiced movement that comes from having done it more than once. Inside sat a captain's badge in its presentation box, a folder stamped with the city seal of Crest, and a black drive marked Office of Professional Standards. "Confidential." Drummond's hands went still for a beat too long. "Could all be fake," Pruitt said quickly. "People print up anything these days." "Officers," Vernell said, fighting to keep the pain from cracking her voice, "you are making a mistake you will not be able to undo. Read what's in your hand." "I said quiet." Pruitt snapped and spun her around to cuff her. Her shoulder popped audibly. She swallowed the gasp whole. The metal closed too tight around her wrists, biting into skin already going purple. "You are under arrest," Pruitt announced, loud enough to carry across the entire terminal, loud enough that he clearly wanted every stranger present to witness her shame. He shoved her forward. "Move." The walk through the terminal stretched out like a mile of broken glass. Travelers paused mid-step. A boy filmed on his phone until his mother slapped it down. "Probably drugs," someone whispered. "They always catch them right here." Vernell kept her spine straight and her chin level, despite the cuffs cutting deeper with every step. The army had taught her that much decades ago. When they try to break you, you give them nothing to hold. Behind them, unnoticed, the woman in the plum cardigan followed at a careful distance, phone low at her hip, still recording. They took her through an unmarked door near the rental counters into a windowless room, with 3 chairs, 1 table, and a camera mounted in the corner with a red light that was not lit. Drummond shut the door. "Sit," he told her. She sat, awkward with her wrists bound. "Big Shot thought she'd just walk through here unnoticed," Pruitt said, pacing. "Thought the rules didn't apply to her." "Brent," Drummond said, "go start the paperwork." Pruitt's face soured, but he left. The door clicked shut behind him. Drummond pulled out a notepad and sat across from her, working fast, the way men work when they are trying to finish something before the people who could stop them arrive. "Here's how this goes," he said. "You sign a statement calling this a misunderstanding. We release you with a warning. Nobody outside this room needs to hear a thing about it." She said nothing. "Or," he continued, "we go the hard way. Impersonating an officer, possessing falsified documents, that drive sitting right there, stolen property." She said nothing still. His jaw worked. "Your silence isn't helping you," he said. "I've got your fake badge, your fake papers, open the folder," Vernell said quietly. "The leather one. Open it." "I don't take orders from open it." Something in the steadiness of her voice made him stop arguing. He crossed to the pile of confiscated items, found the folder, and flipped it open, expecting to mock whatever she had printed up to fool him. The color drained from his face in one long pull. City of Crest Haven letterhead. The mayor's own signature. An authorization code stamped twice. An appointment order naming Captain Vernell Atwood, Commanding Officer, Crest Haven Regional Airport Police Division, effective the following morning. The paper shook faintly in his hands. He checked the seal, checked the signature, checked it all again. "No," he whispered. The door banged open and Pruitt strode back in, grinning. "System slow as molasses tonight." "She crying yet? These types usually," Brent, Drummond said, and his voice came out cracked clean down the middle. "What?" Pruitt said. Drummond held up the order. Pruitt squinted. Read it again." and his grin melted off his face like wax too close to a flame. "That can't be real." "It's real," Drummond said. The fluorescent hum was the only sound in the room. "Captain Atwood," Drummond began, his voice fraying at the edges. "This was a misunderstanding. We had an alert. We were just doing our jobs." Vernell finally spoke. "A misunderstanding," she repeated. "Yes," Drummond said, nearly tripping over the word. "Absolutely. We'll get those cuffs off right now." "Why was a lawful traveler searched without cause?" she asked. "Why was my sealed case open? Why did Officer Pruitt keep going after he saw the seal on that folder?" Pruitt backed toward the door as though she might lunge at him from across the table. His hand fumbled blind for the handle. "A misunderstanding ends the moment the truth shows itself," Vernell said, never raising her voice once. "You kept going anyway. Pull the alert log," she said. "Now. System slow tonight." Drummond stalled. "Maintenance window." "I know you're stalling," Vernell said. Reluctantly, he typed. The screen flickered and resolved into a suspicious person flag. Black female, 60s, locked case, possible contraband. Entered under Sergeant Drummond's login at 4:11 that morning. Vernell studied the timestamp and felt something cold settle in her stomach. The alert had been filed 36 minutes before her plane ever touched the runway. "That's not possible," Drummond said quickly. "I wasn't even on this floor. Someone must have used my login. People share passwords all the." "Who knew I was carrying a locked case?" Vernell asked. The question sat in the room like smoke that wouldn't clear. Drummond's mouth opened and shut twice with nothing coming out. That detail wasn't broadcast anywhere. Not a bag, not luggage, a locked case, specifically. "Who knew that?" Vernell pressed. "Could have been TSA," Drummond tried. "They scan everything." "TSA doesn't file our department's alerts," Pruitt said, his voice gone thin and shaky. "Cole, what is going on?" "Shut your mouth, Brent." "You told me it was routine," Pruitt said. "You told me she looked suspicious, you said." "I said shut your mouth." Vernell watched the two of them, Pruitt unraveling in real time, Drummond calculating his next lie even as the last one collapsed. The dynamic told her everything she needed. "Officer Pruitt," she said, "when exactly did Sergeant Drummond tell you about this alert?" Pruitt's eyes darted helplessly between her and his sergeant. He called me. Said meet him at baggage claim. Said we had a smuggler coming in. A man entered the airport police office at 5:45 like he owned the building, because in most of the ways that mattered, he did. Deputy Mayor Curtis Whitlock carried 2 coffees and a smile broad enough to hide whatever sat behind it. "Captain Atwood," he said, extending a cup. "Rough first night. Thought you could use this." She did not take it. She stood by the window watching the runway lights blink against the dark. Her wrist throbbed beneath her sleeve where the cuffs had bitten in. "Deputy Mayor," she said, "you're up early." Whitlock set both cups on the desk and settled into a chair as though they were old friends catching up. "These things happen," he said. "New face, late night, everybody's a little on edge. Nobody's fault, really. It wasn't a misunderstanding," Vernell said. His smile flickered for half a second. "Poor choice of words," he allowed. "What I mean is, we can frame this properly, control the story before it gets away from us." "They filed a false alert under a fellow officer's login," Vernell said. "They conducted an illegal search. They arrested me without cause." "Allegedly," Whitlock said smoothly. "I was there," she said. "And I'm sure it felt very real to you," he said, leaning back. "But perception isn't always reality, Captain. Memory gets fuzzy under stress." "Are you calling me a liar?" she asked. "God, no," he said. "I'm saying what matters now is how this gets presented to the public. The airport expansion vote is 6 weeks out. 12,000 jobs, $180 million in federal funding. Do we really want to torpedo all of that over one awkward exchange?" "Awkward," Vernell repeated, tasting the word. "What would you call it?" Whitlock asked. "Criminal," she said. His smile finally died. He set his cup down slow and deliberate. "Captain Atwood, let me paint you a picture. City Legal reviews this and sees a new commander who arrived unannounced, resisted reasonable questioning, and is now claiming persecution after standard procedure was followed." "That isn't what happened," she said. "Isn't it?" he said. "Because from where I sit, it looks like someone trying to manufacture a scandal to fast-track reforms she already planned to push through." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "The officers made an error in judgment. They'll be counseled. But if you push this publicly, the only person who gets burned is you." "They're suspended pending review," Vernell said. "No," he said without turning around. "They're not. Check your email. Chief Marsh rescinded that an hour ago. Officers Pruitt and Drummond remain on active duty pending a full investigation, which, given our backlog, could take a great many months. The door clicked shut behind him. Vernell stood alone in the fluorescent glare, the coffee going cold, on the desk untouched. She thought of every wall in this building, every camera, every officer who would choose loyalty to corruption over loyalty to the badge they wore. She crossed to the duty board, found Pruitt's nameplate, and pulled it free with a sharp metallic snap. Then Drummond's. The little brass pieces sat heavier in her palm than their weight should have allowed. Then, she said quietly to the empty room, we begin before they know we've started. The briefing room smelled of burnt coffee and barely concealed fear. 40 officers sat in rigid rows, eyes forward. Cameras lined the back wall like rifles. Everyone expected the new captain to smile, shake hands, and let last night disappear into department legend. Captain Vernell Atwood stood at the podium in her dress uniform, the bruise on her wrist hidden beneath her sleeve, but throbbing all the same. Deputy Mayor Whitlock sat in the front row, his smile already in place. Beside him, Chief Roland Marsh sweated, despite the air conditioning. "Good morning," Vernell said. Silence answered her. "I'm Captain Vernell Atwood, your new commanding officer. Some of you already know that last night I was detained and arrested by members of this division." The room tightened like a fist. That incident revealed deeper problems in this department that require immediate attention. Effective today, I am ordering a full 30-day integrity audit. Whispers broke out across the room. Every stop, every search, every seizure, every complaint filed against this division over the past 2 years will be reviewed. "Captain Atwood," Whitlock said, rising, "perhaps we could discuss the scope privately." "The scope is complete transparency," she said without looking at him. "Officer Brent Pruitt is suspended without pay, effective immediately." Pruitt shot to his feet. "You can't." "Sit down, officer. This is absurd. Sit down or be escorted out." 2 officers pulled him back into his chair as cameras caught every second. Sergeant Hollis Drummond is placed on administrative reassignment, restricted from public contact. Drummond didn't move, didn't blink, just stared back at her, with eyes gone cold as the tile beneath their feet. "Dismissed," she said. The room cleared fast, officers clustering into low, angry knots. Whitlock approached the podium once the cameras switched off. "Congratulations, Captain," he said. "You just declared war on your own department." "I declared accountability," she said. "Same thing, in their eyes," he said, straightening his tie. "You think these men with mortgages and families will just roll over for an audit?" "I think they'll follow the law," she said. He laughed, genuinely, like he hadn't expected to. "God, you actually believe that?" He turned for the door, then paused. "You've made a very lonely choice, Captain Atwood. When you're drowning in grievances and missing evidence, remember I tried to warn you." When only Chief Marsh remained, sweating worse than before, Vernell asked, "Where's Detective Ottilie Brandt?" He blinked. "Brandt? She's down in records, basement level. Moved her there after some unpleasantness a few years back." "What unpleasantness?" Vernell asked. "She wouldn't massage a report when asked," Marsh admitted. "Made things difficult." "Send her up," Vernell said. 20 minutes later, Detective Ottilie Brandt walked in. 61 years old, silver hair cropped short, the posture of someone who had spent years learning to take up less space than she deserved. Her eyes were the only thing about her that hadn't dimmed. "Captain Atwood," she said, and did not sit until Vernell gestured. "Heard you caused quite a stir upstairs." "Heard you caused one yourself a few years back," Vernell said. A faint, dry smile crossed Brandt's face. "Different kind of stir," she said. "Mine was quieter. Career-ending but quieter." "Tell me about the missing property complaints," Vernell said. Brandt studied her a long moment. "You sure you want to open that particular box, Captain?" "I'm sure," Vernell said. "They humiliated me in front of strangers and tried to destroy evidence in my own case. I want every box they hoped would stay shut." "Complaints started 2 years back," Brandt said. "Travelers reporting missing cash, jewelry, electronics. Always the same pattern. Pulled for screening. Things go missing. Complaints filed, then quietly lost." "How many?" Vernell asked. "Officially, maybe a dozen made it to paper," Brandt said. "Unofficially, I kept copies of nearly everything before they shipped me to the basement. But, Captain, these files have a habit of disappearing. I've watched whole boxes vanish from evidence." "Then we'd better move fast," Vernell said. An hour later, Brandt wheeled in a metal cart carrying 3 dust-covered banker's boxes and set them on the desk with surprising gentleness. "This," she said, "is only what they forgot to burn." That afternoon they descended into the basement, the air thick with mildew and old paper. Brandt's converted office held 2 desks shoved together beneath flickering lights. "Welcome to paradise," Brandt said, clearing a chair. "They moved me down here 3 years ago. Said it was temporary." They opened the first box. Complaint forms, handwritten and typed, each one a small theft of dignity. Odessa Fairweather, Brandt read, 71 years old, had her late husband's wedding ring in her carry-on. Never saw it again. Vernell picked up the next file. Curtis Bellamy, 76, flying to his granddaughter's graduation, $900 vanished during a pat-down. Marisol Pina, immigrant, her green card disappeared during secondary screening. Took her 7 months to replace. File after file, the same officers' names. Pruitt, Drummond, sometimes others. Always the same outcome. Property gone, complaint buried. "Look at the pattern," Brandt said, spreading the papers wide. Older travelers, people of color, immigrants, folks who carry cash because they don't trust banks, people they figured wouldn't fight back. Vernell lifted a folder marked with a small hand-drawn cross. Inside, a complaint from a woman named Henrietta Quarles, 74, church treasurer, stopped while carrying funds raised for a youth scholarship program. "Lord," Vernell whispered. "That one haunts me," Brandt said. "Sweet woman, been raising money for kids for 40 years. They destroyed her over it." The complaint said Pruitt and Drummond had detained Henrietta for 2 hours, called her cash suspicious, laughed when she explained the fundraiser, and let the money disappear into evidence with no record of return. Resolved, no wrongdoing found, the file read. "You have her address?" Vernell asked. Brandt nodded. "Little blue house on Verbena Street, statue of an angel out front." That evening they parked outside. The house was modest but cared for. Fresh paint, swept porch, marigolds in window boxes, a stone angel watching over them all with open hands. Henrietta Quarles answered on the second knock. Small and silver-haired, her eyes widening at the sight of 2 uniforms. "Mrs. Quarles," Vernell said. "I'm Captain Vernell Atwood. This is Detective Brandt. We'd like to talk about what happened at the airport." Henrietta's hand tightened on the doorframe. "I told it all 2 years ago," she said. Nobody listened. "I'm listening now," Vernell said, and something in her voice made Henrietta step back to let them in. The living room was a shrine to grandchildren and church socials, photographs covering every surface, a worn Bible open on the coffee table. "Would you like sweet tea?" Henrietta asked, already moving toward the kitchen. "In this house we offer hospitality, even to police who finally bothered to remember my name." She returned with 3 glasses on a tray, her hands faintly trembling. "I was flying to Charlotte," she began, "for the regional conference. Had $6,200 in cash, raised over 2 years selling plates and washing cars for the Youth Scholarship Fund." Officer Pruitt stopped me at security, said. I looked nervous. I showed him the church letterhead, the deposit slip, everything. He called over Sergeant Drummond. "What did he do?" Vernell asked. "He smiled," Henrietta said, the word coming out sharp. "Smiled like I was a fool. Said anybody could print up church papers. They took me to a back room, searched my bags, my pockets, counted the money slow, like they were already spending it. They said it was suspicious for an old black woman to be carrying that much," Henrietta continued. "Said I had to be a mule for somebody, me," she laughed, sharp and aching. "I've taught Sunday school since before either of them was born." "What happened to the money?" Vernell asked. "Evidence," they told me, "would be returned after review. I called every week for half a year. Finally, a woman told me to stop harassing them, or risk charges myself." Henrietta crossed to an old writing desk and drew out an envelope, soft from years of handling. "This held that money," she said. "All those fish fries and car washes. All those children counting their change after service." She placed it in Vernell's hands like something sacred. "They call it evidence. We both know it was theft." "I'm reopening your case," Vernell said. "Don't make promises you can't keep," Henrietta said. "You're a good woman, Captain, I can see that. But those men have power, and power protects itself. They made me feel like a criminal in front of half the terminal, made me scared to fly to my own grandbaby's birthdays." "Promises don't frighten powerful men," Vernell said. "Only consequences do." "Then I'll make sure there are some," Vernell answered. Walking back to the car, Brandt's phone buzzed. She read the message and her face went dark. A local news alert showed Sergeant Drummond in dress uniform before a bank of microphones. "Turn it up," Vernell said. Drummond's voice filled the car. "Persecuted by a commander with a personal vendetta? My partner and I properly questioned suspicious behavior, and now she's dragging good officers through the mud to justify her radical agenda. He's going on offense, Brandt said. Good, Vernel said. Angry men make mistakes. Angry men also end careers, Brandt said. Then we'd better end his first, Vernel answered. The morning news ran on 3 screens at once in the briefing room, and Vernel stood alone watching her reputation burn. Officer Pruitt has served this community 14 years without a single complaint, a union spokesman said, his concern rehearsed down to the eyebrow. Now he's suspended because he had the nerve to do his job? Click. Drummond's attorney, sharp-suited, perfect teeth. Captain Atwood arrived with an agenda. Within hours, she targeted 2 veteran officers. This is retaliation, plain and simple. Click. Sources inside City Hall say the mayor is deeply concerned about Captain Atwood's approach. Turn that poison off, Brandt said, walking in with 2 coffees and the look of a woman who hadn't slept. How bad? Vernel asked. Channel 4 ran Drummond's interview 3 times before breakfast, Brandt said. Channel 9 has Pruitt's wife crying about their mortgage. Social media's worse. Someone leaked that you were arrested for suspicious behavior. Conveniently left out the part where you're the captain. Of course they did, Vernel said. The door opened. Deputy Mayor Whitlock walked in like he owned the air itself. Captain Atwood, unfortunate morning, isn't it? This media circus helps nobody. The officers are willing to accept letters of reprimand. You keep your command. Everybody moves forward. Letters of reprimand for false arrest, Vernel asked. They knew exactly who I was when they put me in cuffs. Can you prove that in court? Whitlock said, stepping closer, lowering his voice. Because their attorneys will argue you refused to identify yourself, that you resisted lawful commands. They'll paint you as difficult, angry, vindictive. Everything certain people already want to believe about a woman like you in a chair like this. The words landed exactly where he'd aimed them. Vernel felt the old, familiar weight settle on her shoulders, the exhausting arithmetic of fighting while black, while a woman, while in charge. Take the deal, Whitlock pressed. Save your name, save your reforms, live to fight the battles that matter. This is the battle that matters, she said. To who? He asked. Some church lady's old complaint? He checked his watch. The mayor's patience has limits, Captain. I am trying to help you. No, she said. You're trying to bury this before it reaches wherever it's actually going. His mask slipped for half a second. Then the smile slid back into place. Noon, he said. That's when the union files its formal complaint against you, unless we settle. He left, his cologne lingering behind him like a threat. He's scared, Brandt said once the door shut. Good, Vernel said. Scared men show their cards. A desk sergeant knocked. Captain, you've got a visitor. Says it's urgent. A woman walked in carrying herself like she still ran a classroom, spine straight, chin high. Marguerite Voss, the woman in the plum cardigan from baggage claim. I taught middle school English for 38 years, she began, settling into a chair without being asked. Inner city Birmingham, then here. You learn to watch everything. Reflections in glass, hands that move where they shouldn't. She pulled out her phone, her hands steady despite her age. I started recording the second that young officer raised his voice, she said. Kept recording even after they moved you. She opened the video. But I wasn't just watching you, Captain. I was watching the glass behind you. The footage played, shaky but clear enough. Pruitt's aggression, Vernel's calm, the brutal wrist twist. Then Marguerite fast-forwarded. Here, she said. Watch the partition behind them. In the reflection, faint but unmistakable, Drummond opened the evidence case, his body angled to block the direct view, his hand dipping in and coming back out, slipping something into his jacket. I taught algebra for 9 of those years before they let me teach the advanced sections, Marguerite said. You learn that angles matter. What you can't see straight on, sometimes you catch. That same afternoon, Vernel spread access logs across her desk, like the pieces of a crime that had been committed one stolen envelope at a time. Drummond entered the evidence room at 4:15 that morning, Brandt said, tracing the timeline. 3 hours after you suspended him. He had help, Vernel said. Someone with clearance high enough that the alarms didn't matter. They pulled every log for the night of her arrest. Evidence room, secure storage, an old customs corridor unused since the terminal's last expansion. Here, Brandt said. Customs corridor, entry at 4:40. Same night. Any cameras? Vernel asked. Decommissioned when customs moved to the new wing, Brandt said. Convenient. Vernel's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She almost let it ring through, then answered. Captain? The voice was scared, male, a faint accent shaping the edges. "This is Eustace. Eustace Coker, from maintenance." She remembered the name from one of the files, a 9-year employee, clean record, nights. "I'm listening, Eustace," she said. I need to tell somebody about the lockers." 20 minutes later, they met him in the underground garage, his keys rattling in nervous hands. "I got a family, Captain," he said. "2 kids. This job is everything I got." "Nobody's threatening your job," she said. "They did before," he said, "when I asked about that corridor. 6 months back I saw Drummond and Pruitt down there mid-shift carrying bags." "What kind of bags?" Vernell asked. "Evidence bags," he said. "Clear ones. But they weren't logging nothing. I asked if they needed help. Drummond told me I was seeing things, and if I wanted to keep seeing my paycheck I'd forget what I didn't see." "Will you show us?" Vernell asked. His hands shook worse. "My job is protected," she said. "I give you my word." "Your word against theirs," he said. "My word with a federal investigation behind it," she answered, which was not yet entirely true, but would be soon enough. Eustace led them through tunnels that smelled of bleach and old concrete, past warning signs in 3 languages, to a service gate that screamed on rusted hinges. Their flashlights found a row of heavy-duty lockers, padlocks new and shining against old battered metal. "Sweet Jesus," Brandt whispered. The first locker held watches, dozens, some still tagged. The second held jewelry and evidence bags, dated but missing case numbers. The third made Vernell's chest go tight. Cash, sorted by denomination, banded by hand, and tucked among the stacks of 20s. A Manila church envelope reading Verbena Street, Youth, Henrietta Quarles's careful signature still visible across the seal. $6,200, Vernell said quietly. "For scholarships." The forensic team arrived to photograph and tag everything by the book, leaving no room for any lawyer to cry foul. Vernell picked up Henrietta's envelope with gloved hands and held it the way you hold something sacred. Her phone rang. "Whitlock. Captain Atwood, I hear you're conducting an unauthorized search." "Fully authorized," she said. "Judge Castellan signed the warrant an hour ago." Silence. Then carefully, "What did you find?" She looked at the violated belongings of 100 travelers stacked along the wall. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock press conference." "That's unwise," he said. "Wisdom is knowing when to stop negotiating with thieves," she answered, and hung up. Before dawn the next day, her headlights cut through empty streets toward headquarters, her mind already drafting the press conference. She found Brandt waiting outside secure storage, her face telling Vernell everything before she spoke. "Don't tell me," Vernell said. "It's gone," Brandt said. The room behind her stood empty, the smell of bleach hanging thick in the air, like someone had scrubbed away every trace of a crime alongside its proof. "The access log says your command code opened that door at 4:15 this morning," Brandt said. "I was home at 4:15, Vernell said. "I know that," Brandt said. "The system says different." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Deputy Mayor Whitlock arrived flanked by 2 city attorneys, his smile cold enough to freeze hell over. "Captain Atwood, we need to discuss a serious matter." "This is unbelievable," Vernell said. "Careful," Whitlock said, his smile widening. "Threatening a city official under investigation for evidence tampering would be unwise." One attorney, a woman with flat, unreadable eyes, stepped forward. "Captain Atwood, you are placed on administrative leave pending investigation into the disappearance of evidence from a secure facility." "You know I didn't take it," Vernell said. "The logs indicate otherwise," Whitlock said. "Your code, your responsibility. The evidence you claim to have found has vanished under your watch." "I documented it, photographed it, cataloged it with a full forensic team," Vernell said. "Photographs can be staged," the second attorney said. "Items can be planted. Without the physical evidence, we have only your word, and given your confrontational approach to this department, your word carries certain questions." "Get out of my station," Vernell said. "Actually," Whitlock said, checking his watch, "it's Chief Marsh's station. You're relieved of command effective immediately. Please surrender your weapon and your badge." Her hand moved to her service weapon, not to draw it, only to feel its weight one last time. "This won't stand," she said. "It's already standing," Whitlock said, nodding toward the entrance, where news vans had gathered like vultures, cameras hungry behind the glass. "Unless you'd rather we escort you past the media. They're quite eager to hear about the missing evidence." Brandt stepped forward. "This is wrong. I was there, I saw." "Detective Brandt," the female attorney said, her voice cutting like glass, "you're reassigned to records review effective immediately. Basement level." Any discussion of ongoing investigations will be considered insubordination. Vernell laid her badge on the desk. It felt heavier than it had any right to. Her weapon followed. Captain, Brandt began. "It's all right, Ottilie," Vernell said, keeping her voice level, refusing to give them the spectacle they were hungry for. "Follow orders." The walk to the entrance stretched out like a funeral procession, officers watching from doorways, some ashamed, some satisfied. Outside, the cameras descended, shouting questions about missing evidence, about abuse of power. Through the noise, she saw Drummond by a patrol car, Sergeant Stripes back on his sleeve, Pruitt leaning against the wall with that same smug grin, tipping an invisible hat as she passed. Inside her car, the shaking finally came, not fear, but a rage too clean to make a sound. She had followed every rule, documented every step, built an airtight case, and they had stolen it out from under her like candy from a child. Her phone buzzed with a voicemail. She nearly deleted it, certain it was another reporter, until she recognized the number. Henrietta Quarles's voice filled the car, steadier than Vernell had ever heard it. "Captain Atwood, I don't know what they did to you today, but I know what they did to me, and I am done being afraid. You come on by when you're ready. I'll have the kettle on." Vernell played it twice more, wiped her eyes, and turned the key toward Verbana Street instead of home. The porch still held the morning chill when she arrived. Before she could knock, the door opened and Henrietta stood there in her Sunday dress, voices already murmuring inside. "Captain Atwood," she said. "Come in, child. We've been waiting on you." The living room smelled of coffee and old wood polish. Marguerite Voss sat on the sofa, posture like a ruler. Two other women occupied the remaining chairs, one younger with tired eyes and work-ruined hands, the other clutching a manila envelope like it was the only thing holding her upright. "The evidence is gone," Vernell admitted once she sat. "Everything we found, the lockers, your envelope, all of it disappeared overnight." "Did you take it?" Henrietta asked. "No," Vernell said. "Then they stole it twice," Henrietta said. "First from us, then from you. That doesn't make it any less true." The younger woman leaned forward. "I'm Delphine Caro," she said. "They took my grandmother's wedding band 2 months back. Drummond said it looked suspicious for airport security. Never saw it again." The older woman opened her envelope with shaking fingers. "Rosalind Aguilar," she said. "My husband's heart medication. Officer Pruitt said it could be illegal. We had the prescription, the doctor's letter, everything. He threw it in the trash and told us to file a complaint if we wanted." "Did you?" Marguerite asked. 3 times, Rosalind said. "Nobody ever called back." "I'm sorry," Vernell said. "I thought I could." "Authority isn't the same as truth," Henrietta interrupted gently. "You lost your badge. You didn't lose being right." Marguerite pulled out a worn address book. "My retired teachers' network covers 4 counties," she said. "Church contacts reach further still. If these men have been stealing from travelers, there are more out there." "What good does talking do?" Delphine asked, weary. "They'll just deny it all over again." "Not if we all talk at once," Marguerite said, her eyes lit with the same fire that had made her start recording at baggage claim in the first place. By noon, the living room buzzed with calls. Stories poured in like water from a broken dam. Cash gone after a random search. Jewelry vanished from a carry-on. Medication confiscated and never returned. Always the same 2 names. Delphine kept a growing list, dates and flights, 22 named by the time the sun began to lean west. The door opened without a knock. Detective Brandt stepped in, looking 10 years older than she had that morning, changed into civilian clothes, but with exhaustion clinging to her like smoke. "Ottilie," Vernell said, "you shouldn't be here." "Pension don't mean much if I can't stand to look at myself in a mirror," Brandt said, pulling up a chair. "They've got me filing 20-year-old burglary reports. Figured I might as well make myself useful instead." She opened a folder. "Internal access logs going back 18 months," she said. "Every time those lockers opened, every time evidence went missing from the system. Patterns clear as daylight once you know how to read it." "Is that enough?" Delphine asked. "Not in court," Brandt admitted. "They'll claim the logs were tampered with. But it proves we're not imagining things." Near evening, a soft knock interrupted them. Eustace Coker stood on the porch, hat in his hands, shame written plain across his face. "Captain," he said, "I lied when I took my statement back. They threatened my job, my insurance. But what they're doing ain't right. Fear makes people do things they regret," Henrietta said gently. "There's something else," Eustace said, twisting his hat. "That old customs corridor's got a freight camera system, independent, runs on its own server. Maintenance uses it to track cargo through the restricted zones. Airport police don't control it. None. Old system, barely runs half the time, but it records everything down there. If those officers moved stolen goods through that hallway, the footage might still exist. Brandt sat up straight. I know somebody, she said. A federal inspector owes me from an old case. If we can get to that footage legally, she'll authenticate whatever's there. Call her, Vernell said. The freight control room sat 3 levels beneath the terminal, forgotten by everyone but maintenance. The monitors outdated and the wiring thick with dust. Eustace led them through a corridor requiring 2 key cards and a maintenance override. Most folks don't even know this room's here, he murmured, unlocking the steel door. I've been down maybe a dozen times in 9 years. System mostly runs itself. Federal Inspector Naomi Calloway examined the cramped space with a methodical patience that made corrupt men nervous on instinct alone. This system is completely separate from airport police servers, she confirmed. Yes, ma'am, Eustace said. Different department, different funding, different everything. Runs on old transportation regulations from before the expansion. Police probably forgot it exists at all. Brandt stood near the door, listening for footsteps from above, her hand resting near her hip out of old habit. How far back do these go? Vernell asked. Depends on storage, Eustace said. Maybe 7 weeks before it overwrites. Start with last week, Vernell said, after I was suspended. The screen flickered to life on a grainy black-and-white view of the abandoned corridor, timestamps from 3 nights earlier, hours after she'd been escorted out. There, Brandt said, pointing. Movement, left side. 2 figures crossed the frame carrying dark bags. Even through the poor quality, the builds were unmistakable. Drummond and Pruitt, Vernell said quietly. They emerged from the locker bay loaded down, transferring items into a maintenance cart, while Drummond checked his watch over and over. They're moving everything, Calloway said, destroying the trail. Can this be enhanced? Vernell asked. Federal lab can clean it up for court, Calloway said, connecting a drive to the system. But this is admissible exactly as it stands. Independent system, intact timestamps, clean chain of custody. Eustace scrolled back further. More late-night visits. Other officers Vernell didn't recognize. The theft had been running far longer than anyone suspected. Then Eustace stopped scrolling. Wait, Vernell said. Go back to that timestamp. 2 nights before her arrival in the city, the corridor sat empty for long minutes. Then 3 figures entered frame. 2 familiar. The third made Vernell's breath catch in her throat. Deputy Mayor Curtis Whitlock. I knew it, Brandt muttered. On screen, Whitlock walked the restricted corridor like he'd built it himself, examining the lockers while Drummond opened them for inspection, Pruitt standing watch near the entrance. He's not covering a scandal, Vernell realized aloud. He's running an operation. They watched Whitlock inspect envelopes of cash and jewelry, selecting a few pieces and slipping them into his jacket pocket. Drummond handed him a thick envelope in return. He's taking a cut, Brandt said. Regular payments. The footage continued. More meetings, document exchanges, planning sessions playing out in grainy silence. The airport arrest had never been random bias from biased men. It had been a calculated attempt to intercept her internal affairs drive before it could expose the entire operation. They panicked the moment they saw the federal case, Calloway observed. Figured if they discredited you fast enough, they could bury whatever you brought with you. Instead, they handed us their own trap. Calloway copied the footage onto multiple drives. I need to call the federal prosecutor's office tonight, she said. Organized theft, civil rights violations, public corruption. This is going to be very large. Brandt's radio crackled. Security sweep through this level in 20 minutes, she said. We need to move. They secured the room and made their way back through the tunnels. The drives heavy in Calloway's bag, weeks of crime compressed into a handful of digital files that would end careers and send men to prison. Vernell's phone buzzed with an urgent message before they reached the surface. City Council emergency session, tomorrow, 9 a.m., regarding leadership and evidence handling within the department. Brandt grimaced. He's making his move, she said, trying to finish you publicly before the federal case develops. He doesn't know about the freight cameras, Vernell said. Not yet. The council chamber buzzed with tension the next morning. News crews lining the walls, reporters claiming the front rows, airport staff clustered near the back, still in their overnight uniforms. Police officers filled an entire section, some loyal to Vernell, others clearly loyal to the old order. She entered through a side door in her dress uniform, captain's bars catching the harsh light, carrying only a slim folder. Whitlock sat center stage flanked by uncomfortable council members. Drummond and Pruitt occupied seats near the front, their attorney positioned between them like a shield. Drummond wore a crisp civilian suit and the posture of a man wrongly accused. Pruitt kept checking his phone, glancing toward the exit. This session addresses serious concerns regarding leadership and evidence handling within our airport police division. Whitlock began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber's speakers. Captain Atwood arrived with a mandate to reform this division and instead created chaos. Good officers suspended without cause. Evidence vanished under her direct command. Morale collapsed. Vernell sat perfectly still, hands folded, expression unreadable. Stillness, she had learned long ago, could carry more weight than any argument. Federal evidence disappeared from secure storage while under her watch. Whitlock continued. This suggests either incompetence or something considerably worse. Several officers nodded. Reporters scribbled. Captain Atwood's targeting of 2 veteran officers appears retaliatory rather than investigative, Whitlock added. They could not have known her identity, as she failed to identify herself properly. He let the words settle. Captain Atwood, you may respond. Vernell rose, smoothed her jacket, and crossed to the podium, her footsteps the only sound in the room. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Whitlock, she said, her voice clear and even. Before addressing your accusations, I'd like to share a citizen's recording with this chamber. Could someone bring up the displays? The screens descended. Marguerite Voss's footage filled them, Pruitt twisting Vernell's arm, Drummond's calm refusal to produce the alert, every harsh word captured in full. This woman is not a police officer, Vernell said as it played. She is a retired schoolteacher who recognized cruelty when she saw it. The chamber sat in heavy silence once the footage ended. That proves nothing, Drummond's attorney called out. Perhaps, Vernell said. Let's hear from the travelers your clients have investigated over the past 2 years. Henrietta Quarles rose slowly, leaning on her cane, moving with a dignity that filled the room. My name is Henrietta Quarles, she said. I am treasurer of Verbena Street Baptist Church. Last fall I carried $6,200 in scholarship funds through this airport. Sergeant Drummond and Officer Pruitt detained me for 2 hours. They searched my purse, my suitcase, my body. Then my money disappeared. She lifted the empty envelope, yellowed with age. This is what they returned to me. Empty. When I complained, I was told elderly travelers get confused under stress. 2 more rows in turn, a father whose immigration papers had vanished, a woman whose heart medicine had been thrown away. Each story carried the same shape. Vulnerable travelers, stolen property, buried complaints. These allegations are unsubstantiated, Whitlock tried. Are they? Vernell said, and pressed the remote again. Detective Brandt appeared on screen standing before a federal seal, time-stamped only hours earlier. I am Detective Ottilie Brandt, 26 years with this department, she said. I have authenticated surveillance footage showing the defendants moving stolen evidence after Captain Atwood was suspended. The screens cut to grainy black and white footage. Drummond and Pruitt carrying bags through the abandoned corridor, emptying the hidden lockers. Then the devastating frame, Deputy Mayor Curtis Whitlock walking the restricted hallway, examining stolen goods, slipping items into his jacket. The chamber erupted. Reporters shouted over each other. Officers turned to stare. Turn those screens off, Whitlock yelled, his composure finally cracking. This is doctored footage designed to. The chamber doors burst open. Federal agents moved in with practiced precision, badges swinging on lanyards. Drummond shot to his feet, grabbing his attorney's briefcase, shoving toward the side exit. Detective Brandt rose from her seat near the wall and stepped directly into his path. Going somewhere, Hollis? She asked, her voice almost conversational. Get out of my way, old woman, Drummond snarled. I don't think so, Brandt said, planting her feet. You've run from the truth long enough. A federal agent appeared behind him. Sergeant Hollis Drummond, you are under arrest for conspiracy, theft of federal evidence, and obstruction of justice. The cuffs clicked shut with a sound that silenced half the room. Pruitt bolted for the main doors, shoving spectators aside, and burst into the marble hallway, chest heaving, looking both ways like a cornered animal. Inspector Naomi Calloway stepped from an alcove directly into his path. Officer Brent Pruitt, she said calmly, you are under arrest. He tried to shoulder past her. She sidestepped and twisted his wrist behind his back with textbook precision, dropping him to the marble floor. Federal charges include theft, conspiracy, and civil rights violations, she said, cuffing him as cameras poured through the doors to capture every second. Back inside, Whitlock stood behind the dais, as though it could shield him from what was happening. "This is outrageous," he shouted. "I demand to speak with city legal immediately." Calloway returned, straightening her jacket. "Deputy Mayor Curtis Whitlock," she announced, loud enough for every camera to catch clean, "you are under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to commit theft, and protection of a criminal enterprise. You have no authority to." "We have footage of you in a restricted corridor examining stolen property," Calloway interrupted. "We have financial records linking donations to property seizures. We have testimony placing you in meetings where victim complaints were deliberately buried." She produced the cuffs. "You can surrender now, or we do this the hard way in front of every camera in this room." Whitlocks searched the chamber for allies who had all become suddenly absorbed in their phones. "This is a witch hunt," he said weakly, and extended his wrists anyway. The metallic click echoed through the silent room. By mid-morning, Chief Roland Marsh had submitted his resignation, citing family priorities. Internal records would later show he had buried complaints against Drummond and Pruitt for 3 years running. The union withdrew all support from Pruitt the moment the footage went public, suddenly discovering they had never much cared for him at all. City Legal called Vernell's phone before noon. Her suspension was lifted, all disciplinary action vacated, full command authority restored, delivered in the flat tone of people eager for the entire matter to vanish from the news cycle. The recovered evidence ran deeper than anyone expected. A second hidden cache, turning up in an abandoned customs office, holding items seized from travelers across nearly 4 years. Henrietta Quarles's envelope sat among them in a manila folder, every dollar accounted for. The afternoon sun slanted long across the same baggage claim where it had all begun, folding chairs arranged in neat rows near Carousel 6. Vernell had requested this exact spot herself. News vans lined the curb outside. Travelers slowed their pace, sensing something important. She arrived at 3:30 beside her mother, in her dress uniform with brass buttons catching the light, the fading bruise on her wrist a quiet reminder of what this place had once meant. Cordelia Atwood moved beside her daughter, leaning on a cane but waving off any other help, 86 years old, and carrying herself like a woman who had waited a long time for this particular afternoon. "You look just like your father in that uniform," Cordelia said. "He'd be so proud of you." "He'd probably tell me the real work starts tomorrow," Vernell said. "That's exactly what he'd say," Cordelia said, her voice thick with both pride and worry. "Just remember, winning doesn't make you safe, it makes you responsible." The crowd swelled larger than anyone expected. Baggage handlers and cleaning crews, who rarely got thanked for anything, stood along the edges. Retirees from Marguerite's church network filled the front rows in their Sunday best, despite the weekday hour. Detective Brandt stood near the wall, still in her basement clothes, but carrying herself entirely differently now. Eustace Coker waited near the maintenance entrance in his cleanest uniform, still half expecting the floor to fall out from under him even now. Marguerite Voss sat front row in a navy blazer, the same purse on her lap that had held her phone the morning everything began. Henrietta Quarles arrived precisely on time with 3 women from her church, wearing burgundy, the empty fundraiser envelope still tucked in her purse as proof of what they'd tried to steal from her. Mayor Theodora Lang opened with a carefully worded apology that acknowledged serious failures without complicating the federal cases still pending. "Today we restore trust," she said. "Today we prove that justice is not negotiable." Inspector Calloway stepped forward with a manila envelope holding $6,200 in crisp new bills, replacing every worn 20 the congregation had given over 2 years of fish fries and car washes. "Mrs. Quarles," she said formally, "on behalf of the federal investigation, I return what was unlawfully taken from you." Henrietta accepted the envelope with shaking hands, counting the bills with the precision of a woman who had managed church finances for 2 decades. When she finished, tears slid freely down her face. "Thank you," she said, then looked straight into the cameras. "I stopped flying after they made me feel like a criminal. Today I know I never was one." The applause that followed was not polite. It was the kind reserved for moments when justice actually arrives instead of just being promised. Marguerite received recognition next, praised for her courage in recording when so many others looked away. "I taught school for 38 years, she told the crowd. "I know a bully when I see one. I also know what happens when good people stay quiet." Eustace was offered a new role as civilian compliance liaison. The city's whistleblower protections expanded specifically because of what his courage had cost him. Detective Brandt's promotion came with the announcement of an independent integrity unit reporting directly to federal oversight rather than local command. Her integrity cost her years of advancement, Calloway said. Today, that integrity becomes the foundation for accountability. Finally, Vernell stepped forward for her oath. Judge Imogen Castellan, brought in to avoid any hint of political influence, administered the words with clear precision. "Do you solemnly swear to faithfully execute the duties of Captain, Crest Haven Regional Airport Police Division, and to preserve, protect, and defend the rights of all travelers regardless of race, religion, national origin, or any other characteristic?" "I do," Vernell said. "Do you swear to hold yourself and those under your command to the highest standard of integrity, service, and accountability?" "I do." "Then, by the authority vested in me," Judge Castellan said, "I reinstate you as captain, with full authority to reform, rebuild, and restore this division." The applause rolled like thunder. Children who had watched from the edges of the crowd drifted closer, curious about the uniform and the celebration they didn't fully understand. A small girl, maybe 7, walked straight up to Vernell with the fearless directness only can have. "Are you in charge?" she asked simply. Vernell knelt to meet her at eye level. Behind them, workers were already mounting a new plaque near the entrance, reading Captain Vernell Atwood, Integrity, Surface, Accountability. She smiled, fully for the first time in weeks. "Yes, sweetheart," she said. "Today I am."